It's Halloween season, that time of year when people seek out the strange and mysterious. Since we're all cooped up in our houses this year, I expect most people will turn to books or television in order to get their horror fix. So it's worth asking the question, what makes us scared? Now, I know a lot of people have analyzed this human attraction to fear and what scares us as a species from a scientific perspective, but that's not what I'm going to cover in this video. Instead, I want to look at the ambiguous ending. Horror media has featured the ambiguous ending for centuries in order to amp up the fear and tension and leave audiences contemplating what it was they just experienced. Sometimes this ambiguity takes the form of a story simply cutting off, leaving plot threads hanging uneasily. Other times, this leaves us with a feeling of dread, wondering if maybe the antagonist wasn't as defeated as we thought. Most of the time, however, the ambiguity comes from the presence of an unreliable narrator. Unreliable narrators are not unique to the genre of horror, although they do tend to crop up in these types of books more often. The story is typically told in first person, with the field of view limited to the protagonist's thoughts and experiences of their world. They draw us in the first part of the narrative, creating a persona of relatability and trustworthiness. Then, in the second or third act, something happens which causes us to question the narrator's judgment. By the end of the story, we aren't left with any real closure, even if the story seems to wrap up all the threads. We have the lurking suspicion that things maybe didn't happen the way we've been told. Maybe they didn't happen at all. Sometimes the presence of an unreliable narrator becomes obvious early on in the story. Either the protagonist is given an instability of some kind from the beginning, such as mental illness or a strong imagination, or they develop this trait over time. Another, and probably more interesting way to end ambiguously, is for the author to hold their cards closer to their chest and not question the narrator's reliability until the very end of the story. In The Turn of the Screw, author Henry James ends abruptly with a twist none of us could have seen coming. As Miles lies dead in the narrator's arms, we have a creeping suspicion we haven't been told the whole truth. And wouldn't you know it, we have no choice but to reread the whole thing and look for clues to support one theory or another about what really happened at Bly. Were the ghosts real, or was it all in the governess's head? Why did Miles die? What happened to Flora and Mrs. Groves? The ending gives us none of these easy answers, and we're left to speculate and wonder at the mystery of it all. In The Shining, Kubrick gets us to wonder if any of the strange and supernatural events even took place, or if Jack Torrance has slowly been losing his grip on reality this whole time. Is the hotel to blame, or is it Jack himself? Frankenstein's unreliable narrator is unique in that the story is told by Frankenstein to an Arctic explorer entirely after the events of the story have taken place. As he recounts his tale, we get the uneasy feeling that Frankenstein is purposefully omitting or twisting the facts in an attempt to justify his own actions. In the end, Frankenstein dies anticlimactically of exposure. We're left with the image of the monster crying over his dead body, even though he was supposedly seeking revenge on his creator. What parts of Frankenstein's tale can we actually believe? We don't know, and this unsettles us. But why does this lack of any definitive answers bother us so much? What makes the ambiguity scary? The simple truth is, it's us. Everyone has, at certain times or in certain situations, come to question the reality of their own experiences, some more than others. Poor René Descartes. As our understanding of the human psyche and the unreliability of our own memories grows, we start to feel uncomfortable in our own heads. And when we read or consume stories that bring these questions to the forefront of our minds, we're unsettled. What if we're the unreliable narrator of our own story? This realization of the subjectivity of our experience of the world initially strikes fear in us, but it can also liberate us. There's a kind of morbid freedom in knowing that we don't know. In the words of the absurd father of absurdism, Albert Camus said, Basically, at the very bottom of life, which seduces us all, there is only absurdity and more absurdity. And maybe that's what gives us our joy for living, because the only thing that can defeat absurdity is lucidity. This liberation from the pressure to conform to our experiences allows us to create our own meaning in the world. Maybe there is no overarching story or consciousness of our lives, but that knowledge leaves us free to inject our own meaning into our lives. This brings us to the daddy of postmodernism, existentialist philosopher and bomb Russian novelist Dostoevsky. Yep, I can work him into anything. In a letter to his brother, Dostoevsky tried to come to terms with his own doubts and fears, his own private existential horror. When I look back at the past and think how much time has been wasted in vain, how much time was lost in delusions, in errors, in idleness, in ignorance of how to live, how I did not value time, how often I sinned against my heart and spirit, my heart bleeds. Life is a gift. Life is happiness. Each minute might have been an age of happiness. Camus would definitely have seen this as the coward's way out, but who cares what he thinks? You yourself said the world is all subjectivity, my dude. Why not make the best of it? Dostoevsky provided his own answer to this problem in his semi-autobiographical book, The Idiot. The central character, Prince Mishkin, often launches into extensive philosophical monologues about the world and the beauty of life, echoing Dostoevsky's own sentiments. In a quote often repeated, he boldly declares, "Beauty will save the world." Beauty will save the world. This hope is the foundation of all art and science, and it is the hallmark of good horror stories. Ambiguity may terrify us, but in the end it empowers us to explore our own humanity. Anyway, happy Halloween! If your subjective experience enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe and all that other good stuff. Comment your favorite ambiguous ending down below. Well, I think that's all for now, folks. I'll see you next time.